Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 758. I had the white pieces and started off with e4. My opponent went c5 and went knight f3, so normal Sicilian move. He went knight c6, one of the three main choices there. Start off with Sicilian, I go with d4, going for an open Sicilian. And here my opponent uncorks the surprise move e6. So I think this is kind of an interesting position, and I've reached it before in different move orders. So I want to show you one trick, another way to get to the same position. So remember, this game started off as a Sicilian, but after e4, if your opponent plays e6, you may think he's going for a French defense. You play d4, the main move, and then he goes c5, and you say, oh, he's transposed from a French into an e6 Sicilian, so I should play a Sicilian move here like knight f3. And that is, in fact, the most common move and probably the correct way to play it. You're still waiting for him to take, so you can take back with the knight, and then he plays knight c6. And we reach the identical position that we saw in the game. So yeah, it's just after three moves. Just get to the same position by a different move order. Anyway, in the opening book here, it has knight c3. If you look at this line after knight c3, c takes, again, we've gotten into an ordinary Sicilian, but there's no guarantee that that white will take on that move anyway. So just playing knight c3 and pretending like you're in a normal Sicilian may not do anything for you. c3 is a logical move, and that's a move I've played in the past in this position. They're saying, well, if he doesn't want to take, I don't want to take. I guess that's an important point to emphasize. White doesn't want to take here. It just helps black develop his dark squared bishop. You place a move like c3, and then if he ever does take, then you get to take back with a pawn and keep a big center. And in the meantime, you can just leave the tension there. You're not forced to play anything. But, well, this game I experimented with a different move. I experimented with bishop e3, which I think was kind of interesting, but it led to basically an even game. So I was kind of wondering what would be the best way to play here. And the best move, according to the chess engine, is this, it's the fourth choice in the database, this d5 move. But in fact, it looks pretty strong. If you play d5, basically what you end up in is some kind of Benoni, where black is wasting some time because he's going to have to move this knight anyway. Say if he moves it immediately, the chess engine gives this as the best line, knight a5, and then c4, and then let's see what. Yeah, I guess I just stopped here. But this is clearly something. Well, it looks a lot like a modern Benoni if white could play the move d6 here, and black just keeps developing, and then white keeps developing, and black has to find a way to develop that bishop, perhaps by fianchettoing over here. But in the meantime, you have to ask, what is this knight? What is this knight doing here on a5? In the opening book, it gave this line where black would take here and move the knight back to b8, and then white plays c4. But once again, yeah, this looks like a Benoni structure where where this trade has already happened. The trade of the e-pawn, the trade of the white's e-pawn for black's e-pawn for white's e-pawn. You know, just gives white a lot of space, and also in this case an edge in development since the knight has gone forth and then come back. Black is probably going to play something like d6 and knight d7 to get that knight back into the game. So anyway, if you ever reach this position by either move order, that's an idea for you. Just push on with d5. I'm certainly going to try that next time I get to this position. Okay, but let's go with the game. I went with bishop e3, and this is okay as well. It did force him to take. You know, he could have still avoided taking, I suppose, by playing d6, but it seems to be taking it a bit too far. Then I could take, and he would end up with a pawn on c5 rather than a bishop, so I could take there without helping him develop. So anyway, he decided to go ahead and take. I take. And we have a pretty normal position. He went knight f6. I went bishop d3, defending my pawn. I wasn't quite sure about the placement of my c-pawn and the placement of this knight, so I'm developing the bishop here. This is okay. And then he went bishop b4 check. This is not the most precise move here. think, aside from black's weird opening choices, his remaining moves have been okay. But the chess engine says now is the time to break with d5. And we should get about an even position. This move bishop d4 kind of helps me. It makes it decides for me on my behalf. It decides what I'm going to do with the c-pawn, and forces him to move the bishop again. And this move c3 was always one of my options in the position, so it's not a bad move. So anyway, I just castle at this point. He castles, and I develop my queen to e2. Want to stay out of the way of the knight. The knight still wants to come to d2 probably to develop. And now he goes d5. I keep on developing with knight d2. And then he played knight to e5. Let's see. The chess engine likes black, would prefer black to continue with the move e5, kicking my knight. I was a little bit worried about this, but I think this turns out okay anyway. You have to worry about your pieces getting trapped here, but pushing the pawn forward doesn't really accomplish anything at this point. The bishop has the square g5 to escape to, even if this d pawn is well protected. So h6 is interesting, taking away that g5 square from my bishop, and take, and queen takes. And this is an okay position as well. I can develop my rooks to the center. I should be fine here. I guess I do have to worry about a move like rook a to d1 would maybe be a bit premature because it would leave the a pawn hanging. But I think the chess engine had the f rook coming out at this point and says white is okay here. Maybe a slight opening edge, but nothing great. So knight e5 in this position is what he played, where pawn to e5 would have been stronger. So knight e5. The knight's a little bit of a target there. I decide to keep my bishop pair in this game, unlike previous games. I think I'm helping him if I let him trade off that bishop. This is not, it is looking at a center pawn here, but the center is not fixed, it's fluid, so you can't say that that's a bad bishop in this position. The only thing I was a little bit worried about here was knight to g5, but well, we'll come to that, or knight g4, we'll come to that in a second. Let's see, he goes bishop d7, and I was thinking about the move f4 here, and I was worried about him playing knight e to g4, but in fact the chess engine says f4 really was the best move there to chase that knight away, and then if the knight goes here, you go on with e5. So this would require some calculation, certainly more thought than I put into it in the game. But the point is, if he takes my bishop, it also forks my bishop over here. Well, that's defended, and the rook. But when I take his knight, I'm also hitting his bishop with a pawn. And so if you go through the whole calculation, say he takes, I take, he takes the rook, I take the bishop, and the pawn is now forking these two pieces, so he needs to respond, and then I can gather up this knight, and let's see, knight takes f1. That was the chess engine line. And so what is this? This is, I've got two pieces, two knights for a rook, and white's a little better here. So anyway, I guess the net is I could have actually played f4 there, and I didn't really need to be worried about knight to g4, although I would have had to calculate that out. Anyway, I played it safe here by just pushing forward with h3, keeping control of that square. Let's see, he played a6. Maybe he's preparing to play b5 here. No, I went with f4. And yeah, he really needs to just retreat. But actually, it's already kind of switched, and white has some kind of advantage here due to his inaccurate moves. So if he doesn't blunder here, but just plays the best moves, knight back to c6, pretty normal. And after an exchange, he is now threatening bishop to b4, but there is time to play e5. I looked at this. If he plays, rather, bishop b5, I can block with the c-pawn in this particular case because my knight's here. So that is still okay. So after e5, he has to move his knight to d7, and then queen f2 to get off that diagonal. And advantage to white here. I've just better posted pieces and ideas of pushing the center pawns forward, and the knight can come in for a kingside attack. So looks like a pretty nice position for white. Also, this square here, it could be used as an outpost for either the knight or the bishop, depending on how things go. So pretty comfortable edge for white here. But, well, the move he played was just a blunder. He played bishop to b5 right away, leaving his knight hanging. And I guess he hadn't noticed that my knight was there in position to just trade off his bishop. Maybe he had imagined some other sequence where that knight had moved or something, but and just played moves in the wrong order. But anyway, it's not working. He tried to throw in this move, knight e4, and I was just going to take that knight off and stay a piece up, which will work because even though my knight is hanging, his knight is hanging too. So I get to stay a piece up in all lines. So anyway, a short game, but I thought it was worth looking at for that little bit of opening, you know, just trying to figure out what to play in that weird opening. Okay, I'll see you guys later. Bye.